Org to donate today. Even the smallest donation can help. The Brady Farkas Show is produced and funded by WDEV and the Radio Vermont Group. We welcome listener feedback. Email your comments to wdev@radiovermont.com.
The energy. So the barber trims my beard all nice, like an artist. Now, I didn't tell him to do that. I wanted the beard gone. So then I went home and shaved it off completely after I was done. I felt horrible. The passion. Rafael Devers is the biggest contract in franchise history. He needs to be a leader for this Red Sox team. The opinions on all your favorite teams. Are the Patriots close to playoff contention? Yes. Are they close to Super Bowl contention? Hell no. This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com. What's up, everybody? Brady Farkas Show back at it here on a Friday on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. We've got a full show, all 90 minutes. We're up until 7 o'clock. They've pushed back the start of the high school basketball game for tonight just by a couple of minutes. Not long, but we will have Williamstown and Spalding for you coming up at about 7 o'clock today. We had said 6:45 for the pregame show. The pregame show will really begin about 7. So I'm here for all 90 minutes, and we'll be around talking with Alex Abrami of the Burlington Free Press here in about a half an hour. He's going to talk with us about the UVM athletics facilities delays and where exactly we're at right now in Catamount country. We had real Red Sox baseball today. They took on Northeastern. We'll talk a little bit about what we saw, including some of the rule changes that were implemented today. You can get in on the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line. 802-585-3026, your locally owned Napa stores in Waterbury and Morrisville. You can also watch the show live on Facebook Live, and you can stream us on YouTube and my Twitter account as well.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go.
The opening thoughts on the Brady Farkas Show are brought to you by Sticks and Stuff and by Swanton Lumber. They are Vermont's most complete locally owned home center with locations in Enosburg, Derby, Middlesex, St. Albans, and at Swanton Lumber. They're online at sticksandstuff.com. I want to start today talking a little bit more about the situation involving athletics within the Northern Vermont University system. And props to Kevin Ellis today, who was on Vermont Viewpoint. And that his conversation got me all riled up. I don't know if you heard this, but I actually called in as a regular listener to Vermont Viewpoint today. And I believe that was the first time that I've ever done that. And it was weird for me to kind of be on that side of the fence. I'm listening to the radio. They're soliciting for calls, and I actually called in. It was weird for me to be on that side of the fence, to be the caller and the respondent as opposed to the host or the driver of the conversation, but it was fun. And Kevin was talking with Ann Allen of 7 Days about the decision of the Northern Vermont University system to transition their library to an all-digital one and to change the way the system does sports. If you have missed this, NVU Johnson is leaving the NCAA and going to a lesser version, and Vermont Technical College is leaving really athletic or competitive sports altogether and going to intramural sports. That's been out there. We have talked about it both on this show and on the news. So I'm going to get to that. Before I do, by the way, before I really go into lambasting this decision, I want to give Kevin Ellis a little bit of credit, because I give him credit for asking Ann Allen of 7 Days about the athletics piece to this. Ann's story in 7 Days really made just a footnote of the athletic issue and the cutting of sports, and talked almost exclusively about the library going to the all-digital system. And I get it. She's not a sports writer, and I get it. It's a place of higher learning, and books matter, and education matters. Of course it does. The library is a huge thing. And if you're mad about that, you're justifiably mad about it. But I encourage people in the media, in the state, and listeners at large to not discount the magnitude of what's happening in sports. The decision to basically cut all athletics from VTC and to downgrade athletics at NVU Johnson, this is a huge story. And it's a story that's not being talked about enough, and it's a story that's not being cared about enough. Everybody's outraged about the library. Be outraged about the library. That's egregious also. But also be outraged about sports. because what's happening in sports to these student athletes now and prospective is not right, and it's not fair. Athletics being altered forever at these institutions is a big deal, and it's not getting the reaction and the coverage that it deserves. It is a huge loss for students at the high school level in this state whose goal is to play college athletics. Then now they have one last option to do it at home. It's a big deal for them. And it's also a huge loss and a huge failure, in my opinion, in terms of some of the state's goals. Now, I'm not a news guy by trade, right? I have morphed into a news guy since taking this job, but I'm not a news guy by trade. Every time I listen to the governor have a press conference, almost always he's saying, Vermont has an age crisis. Vermont has a demographic issue. Vermont needs to get younger. Vermont needs to retain younger people. It needs to get younger people. It needs to keep younger people in the state. Vermont needs to get younger. This decision to cut and impact college athletics is a huge slap in the face to those state-stated goals. If the state of Vermont wants to keep its younger people in-house, well, you've alienated a bunch of them that would have liked to do that. A lot of them would have gone to NVU Johnson to play sports. Now they can't. Some of the ones that would have gone to Johnson are now going to go to Linden, and those ones aren't going to be able to make teams, so now they're going to leave. Somewhere in this decision is a ripple effect where young people that would have stayed leave the state. That's a problem. And that runs counter to everything we're being told about the state's goals. Also, if you go up and down the NVU Johnson rosters, there's a lot of student athletes from out of state. Texas, Maryland, California. Now those kids will never come to Vermont. They'll never come here. They'll never stay here. So the state has a goal to get younger, and by cutting sports, you have made that harder to do because a bunch of students every year are no longer going to look at your state. That's the way this works. So that is a decision. This athletics decision and its chain effects here, its domino effect, is something that deserves your attention and deserves your outrage. I praise Kevin Ellis for asking Ann Allen about the sports angle because her story largely didn't mention it. The headline didn't mention it at all. It's all about the library. Be mad about that, but be mad about this too, because this has a far-ranging consequence. Secondly, the thing that has me outraged, and one of the reasons that I called in to Vermont Viewpoint today, is because why is all this happening? Why is there an athletics restructuring? Higher ups will tell you it's to save money. It's part of trimming $5 million a year. It's part of trimming $25 million over 5 years. You know what this really is? This is a response to a problem that they created. And do not get it twisted. They created this problem. The institution. I'm going to stick with NVU Johnson because they're the ones in the NCAA. They're the ones that I know. They created this problem, and this is their response to it. So I believe that NVU Johnson had a major hand in what's going on at their institution, and they are responding to a problem that they helped create, and that ticks me off. So I was told by VT Digger a couple of weeks ago on the afternoon news service that NVU Johnson is on NCAA probation for some reasons, and part of the reason is they don't have full enough rosters for some sports, and they aren't in compliance. So I think the school looks at this like, you know what? Sports are on life support here anyways, so let's just get rid of them. But you know why you're on life support? You're on life support because of your own doing, and that stinks that you created this issue, and now you're going to put the final daggers in the athletic programs. That's not right. I went and looked at just some of the rosters today for NVU Johnson athletic teams. It's embarrassing. There are 9 players on the NVU women's basketball team. You're allowed to have 15 by the NCAA. There's 16 players on the softball team. Most teams have upwards of 30 players or more. 10 players in volleyball, which is less than other Division III colleges in Vermont. NVU Johnson has fallen short across the board in terms of players participating. But you know why that is? In my opinion, it's because the school doesn't invest in athletics and because it hasn't invested in their athletic department. If it did, they could properly recruit student athletes. They could properly retain student athletes. They could fill out their rosters. And if you can do that, then you can get a bunch of extra tuition money. You can get a bunch of extra room and board money. And that would go a long way towards helping your money situation. Would it not? The answer from the higher ups is to cut the sports teams. The answer should be, how do we properly invest in the sports programs so that we get a great return on our investment? NVU Johnson has a number of part-time coaches or a number of coaches pulling extreme double duty at the university. You know what happens when you have part-time coaches and guys and gals that are stretched completely thin? They can't recruit properly. And when you can't recruit properly, you're done. And that's what's happening at NVU Johnson, is it not? Let's play a little game here. I went and looked at some stats and figures and did a little math. An in-state Vermont student will pay $10,000 a year to go to NVU Johnson. An out-of-state student will pay $20,000. So let's just call the average tuition $15,000 right in the middle, right in the middle. I mentioned there's 9 players on the NVU women's basketball team. Let's just say they got to 15 players. That's another 6 bodies on that team at $15,000 a pop. There is $90,000 extra for the university right there just in tuition. Let's say that the softball team added the 15 extra players that it could at $15,000 in tuition. That's what, $225 extra $1,000, I believe? Then you go and you start filling these rosters to their limit, and everybody's paying tuition. And now some of these people are going to pay room and board, and some of these people are going to pay for a meal plan. And now you're getting even more revenue. So cutting sports doesn't have to be the solution. Investing in sports should be the solution. Because if you pay a full-time basketball coach $50,000 and give them a recruiting budget, then they could go out, fill your roster, get you more money. You want to pay a softball coach full-time, let them focus on that. You want to have grad student assistants who you don't pay, but you give education to, and they're looking to make a name, and they recruit their tails off. They could help fill out your rosters and get you more money. Look, I worked a long time ago at a Division III school in Pennsylvania, and I won't give the name of it, but it used athletics solely as an enrollment thing. Now, I didn't agree with that at the time, right? They overfilled their rosters. They said, look, we'll bring in 40 baseball players, 50 baseball players. We'll tell them all they got a spot on the team. We'll take their tuition money, and then we're going to cut 15 of them, and some of them are going to stay, so we've got bonus money here. I don't agree with that. I thought that screwed the kids. But fill your rosters to the limit within reason, and there you go. You've got a ton of extra tuition money. Bring in coaches that are grad assistants. Again, don't pay them if you don't want to. Give them the free masters and let them work their tail off because they're young and hungry and they want to recruit. This ticks me off. It doesn't have to be cutting sports. Why does this have to be the answer? Why does this have to be the answer? Everybody's looking to cut. How about investing and then getting a return on investment? I had somebody tell me when I brought this up today in the building, but Brady Johnson, even if they invested, nobody would go there. That's not true. Every school has a thing. Every school has a recruiting niche, and you need to find it and you need to exploit it. And if you are invested in your athletic department and have people who believe in your athletic department, they can sell that niche to prospective student athletes. When I worked at Norwich, what was the niche? Oh, it's the military. So stop trying to go and recruit the baseball player from Boston who's got a zillion other offers. Go recruit the military kid that's only looking at 6 other schools in the country. That's the niche. Play to it. Dominate it. Own it. Student athletes flock to little religious schools. Student athletes flock to all girls schools. Student athletes flock to science schools and brainiac schools and state schools and schools that cost $80,000 a year. Kids will go where they are wanted and where there is an athletics department support in place. Kids will go anywhere. Sports are great at Castleton. Is Castleton is it that much better than Johnson as a locale or as a university? I would doubt it. Kids will go and pay $60,000 a year to go to Norwich. Is Northfield that much better as a locale than Johnson? I would doubt it. I went to Oswego State, where it's 0 degrees all the time and snows the most in the country. And you know what? They're one of the best athletic programs in all of Division III now. Kids will go where there is belief and where there is a support in place. And Johnson has chosen not to do that. And now they're here to tell you, oh, we're cutting sports to save money. Well, you've made sports not worth it because of your lack of investment. Go the other way. Invest. And then see a return on the investment. It's the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. Texter says, right on, Brady. Thank you very much. I mean, that's the way that this should go. And you know what? If you told me, hey, Brady, we paid our basketball coach $50,000 and we brought in 2 grad assistants and we paid our softball coach $50,000 and we still can't compete, well, then maybe I'd say, okay, you know what? At least you tried, but you haven't tried. All you've done is gut a program that you gutted in the first place. Again, I worked at a college that used athletics solely for enrollment, solely as a way to stay in business. And it worked wonders for them. Again, I don't believe in over-recruiting. I don't believe in promising a kid something and then taking it away. But if your basketball team has 9 players, you should be able to get to 15. If your softball team has 16 players, you should be able to get to 25 or 30. And if those extra kids, those difference, are paying an average of $15,000 a year, plus room and board, plus meal plan, plus books, there's going to be some money brought in there. On all of it for what? The price of a full-time coach? That seems like something worth trying to me. It's the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. I will continue to take your texts on this. And again, I do thank Kevin Ellis for talking about it today, because not enough people are talking about the athletics component of this. Now, I applaud, this is not a political statement, I applaud what Lieutenant Governor David Zuckerman said the other day. I read his release on this, and he said that getting rid of athletics runs counter to the state's goals of having young people. And he was right about that. The governor has said, we need young people. Everybody recognizes the issue at hand in the state. Well, forcing young people out is not the way to make it better. How many kids in Vermont now that would have gone to NBU Johnson and wanted to play sports are going to leave and go somewhere else? And they're going to end up at Plattsburgh State, and they're going to end up at Husson in Maine, and they're going to end up at New England College. They're all going to flock to those places because you said you can't play here anymore. And that's frustrating as all hell to me. And then some kid that would have gone to Johnson is now going to go to Linden. And then that kid's going to have to leave and go to New England College or Plattsburgh State. And they're going to stay there, and they're never going to come back. John in Moncton, Brady, loved the commentary. I agree wholeheartedly. Johnson can go after people that like winter activities, among other things. Thank you for bringing this to the attention. Yeah, thank you, John, for saying that. Every school has their niche, and you need to find what your niche is. Again, the person that told me, Brady, even if they invest it, no one will go here. I don't believe that. Do you see the places that people go to colleges around this country? Do you see the college towns that they go to? They're not all great, but people will go where there is investment and support and where they have an opportunity because of that investment and support. Again, I see student athletes all the time go to schools. Like, I remember doing this at RPI, right? RPI is a Division III school, Division I hockey, but Division III school that costs $1 zillion to go there. You've got to be rich, you've got to be smart, and you've got to be an engineer. That is a very, very tiny swath of kids you're recruiting. And you know what? RPI fills every roster spot every year. People go there. And people do the same at RIT, and people do the same at Union. And those programs, by the way, not only do people go there, they're also good. And I see kids who end up in schools that are only nursing schools. That's their thing. Only business schools, only teaching schools. I had a kid, like, I was recruiting a kid back in the day. He ended up going to Clarkson. Why? He wanted to be an engineer. Couldn't compete with that. That was their thing. I mean, these places all have a niche. You need to find them. Right? When I coached in junior college, okay, we had people look at junior college and they look down upon it, right? Junior college has a stigma. I don't want to go there. You know what our niche was? Hey, it costs $4,000 a year to go here. Ding, ding, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. You should have seen the way the parents' eyes lit up. They forgot about the junior college stigma when I told them it costs $4,000 to go here, and you're going to spend 2 years here and pay $4,000 or $8,000 total. The stigma went out the window when I just kept pressing that button. And if you didn't like that button, I had another button to press. Our college was Hudson Valley Community College. The Tri-City Valley Cats played at Hudson Valley Community College, right? They used to be in the same league as the Lake Monsters. So I said, hey, you want to stand in a mound where Cy Young winner Dallas Keuchel has stood? You want to hit in a box where World Series champion Jose Altuve has hit? You want to hit in a box where JD Martinez has stood? Then come here. If the price didn't get him, that usually did. You just got to find your thing. And Johnson has a thing too. Now, I don't know what it is because I don't live there. I'm not from there, and I've never been to the school. So I'm not here to find what your niche is, but it's got one, whether it's an academic niche, a location niche, an affordability niche, or an opportunity niche where you can tell a kid, hey, you can come here and make our team. But you got to find it, and you got to invest in it. And it's so infuriating to me that people don't do that. And it's so infuriating to me that that sports are being gutted to fix a problem that you created. Get people in there full time that will recruit, that will fill rosters, that can truly invest. I look today, this is a serious thing. The women's basketball coach at Johnson is also the athletic director. How much time do you think he can devote to women's basketball recruiting when he's the AD who has to oversee all the other sports and deal with all their issues, funding and coaches and all? He's got to deal with everything. And he's also the women's basketball coach. How much time can he possibly put into that job? And somewhere else in there, I'm sure, some other coach is a part-time, is a banker by day and a coach by night. You can't have this stuff. These coaches should be full-time so they can give you a return on your investment. It ticks me off that this is a state university getting state funds and now it can't sustain itself athletically. I mean, this frustrates me to all hell. And I appreciate Kevin Ellis for bringing me on today because, again, he was talking about it, and I can tell he's a sports guy. And I can tell he's passionate about this. And he asked the right questions, Van Allen. I just wish that everybody else involved cared as much about athletics as they do the library. The library matters. I'm not telling you not to be mad about that. And yes, I know that higher learning matters more at colleges than athletics does in a lot of cases, especially at the Division III level. But athletics matters too. And those kids, those student athletes deserve to be heard. Now, I'll tell you, I have reached out to somebody in the NVU Johnson community, athletic community. I do not know if I'm going to hear back, but I'm trying to get them on the show. because I want to hear what it's like on the inside and how hard it is and what the support is or is not like. I want to hear that. I don't know if I'm going to get that person on, but I'm trying. And if I can't get that person on, I'm going to try to get somebody else. But this is a short-sighted decision. This is a short-sighted decision, and it's done this state a disservice. Now, I was supposed to take a commercial like 10 minutes ago, but not going to have time to do that now before CBS News. So you can get on in again, 802-585-3026 here on this Friday. Man, I am hot on this. Sticking with local sports here, over the weekend, it is a busy weekend of local sports. There's a lot of stuff going on. We've got high school playoff action around the state in girls basketball. Boys regular season basketball is finishing up. We've got our game tonight at 7 o'clock between Williamstown and Spalding on the boys' side. The brackets are going to come out on Monday for the boys' tournament. Hockey starts today for the boys. All the pairings are out for hockey. We got UVM athletics this weekend with men's hockey finishing the regular season. Women's hockey in the Hockey East playoffs. They're taking on UNH tomorrow afternoon. We've got UVM men and women's basketball finishing up their seasons this weekend. Well, the UVM women they're going to take on Bryant tomorrow. UVM men will play Bryant as well. They'll have one game left on Tuesday against Albany. Then we got Norwich athletics, Norwich women's hockey. They are in the NEHC semifinals. Norwich men's hockey is in the NEHC semis as well. They're taking on Babson. We'll have that for you at 6:35 tomorrow. I talk about UVM athletics. They got issues there as well. The arena that we were supposed to be in already, the UVM men and women's basketball teams were supposed to be in their new arena already, and they're not. And they don't appear to be close to being in their new arena. What's the holdup? Alex Abrami of the Burlington Free Press, he's going to tell us that next here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. Oh, I mistimed the break by 15 seconds. So, yeah, the UVM project, athletic facilities project, was supposed to be done. We're supposed to be playing basketball now in this new facility. We're not even close to having it done. Why? Alex Abrami next.
We're extending the push it, pull it, or tow it sale here at Lamoille Valley Chevy. Tell them, bro. Folks, after a really strong January here at Lamoille Valley Chevy, we have decided to extend our push it, pull it, or tow it sale into February. Being one of the highest volume Chevy dealers in Vermont means we have a ton of new trucks in stock, but it also means we get a lot of very nice trade-in. Right now, our 7-acre lot is loaded with a ton of one-owner, low-mileage, late-model cars, trucks, and SUVs, and I have instructed my entire team to do whatever it takes to make deals. Right now, you can push it, pull it, or tow any single trade to Lamoille Valley Chevy and get a $1,000 minimum trade allowance toward any new truck or SUV on our lot, or triple your savings and get a $3,000 minimum trade allowance towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. Many of these Lamoille Valley Chevy pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs are certified pre-owned and come with a better-than-new 100,000-mile warranty on top of a guaranteed minimum trade allowance of $3,000. So get to the push it, pull it, or tow it sale happening now at Lamoille Valley Chevy, just past Stowe and Morrisville in the beautiful town of High Park, Vermont. And remember, at Lamoille Valley Chevy, we know price matters.
Antioxidants. You've heard of them, but do you know what they're good for or where to get them? This is Sylvia Escott Stump of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Antioxidants, they destroy the free radicals that cause cellular damage, and eating foods that are rich in antioxidants may help prevent cancer and heart disease. These foods include red wine in addition to grape juice, whole grain pasta, eggs, seafood, and canned beans, brightly colored vegetables, carrots, squash, broccoli, all the peppers, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, and kale are other tasty sources. And for those of you with a sweet tooth, good news. Honey, brown sugar, and maple syrup, in addition to fruits like blueberries, cantaloupe, peaches, and strawberries, also contain significant levels of antioxidants. Encouraging you to eat right, I'm registered dietitian Sylvia Escott Stump with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
The WDEV studio is sponsored by Sticks and Stuff and Swanton Lumber, Vermont's largest independent home center, powered by Marvin Doors and Windows. Go to sticksandstuff.com for store locations and hours.
This is WDEV, Vermont's news station, owned and operated by the Radio Vermont Group. From the top of Sugarbush, 96.1 FM, WDEV Warren and Waitsfield, 96.5 W243 Barrie, 98.3 W252 CU Montpelier, along with our founding station, AM 550 WDEV Waterbury Montpelier, streaming at WDEVradio.com. 91 years of serving Vermont, the friendly pioneer, WDEV.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Steel.
I'm Peter King in Orlando. 1 year after Russia invaded Ukraine, President Vladimir Zelensky says his country is still standing, but needs more help from the West. Correspondent Charlie Daggett is in Kyiv.
They've lost so many people. Millions have been displaced, both within this country and refugees in other countries. There's nothing to celebrate here aside from their own survival.
And the war, of course, has led to a massive exodus of Ukrainians to places all over the world. CBS's Camilo Montoya Galvez.
8 million Ukrainian refugees remain scattered across Europe in countries like Poland and Germany. Another 5 million have been internally displaced inside Ukraine. In the U.S., Ukrainian refugees are finding sponsors and family members, but also complete strangers hoping to make a difference. 2/3 of the sponsorship requests in the U.S. have originated in New York, Illinois, California, Washington, Florida, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Ohio.
Accused killer Alec Murdaugh is done testifying at his murder trial in Walterboro, South Carolina. In cross-examination, he admits that he lied when he said he wasn't at the crime scene just before his wife and son were murdered. He says he didn't kill them.
The person or people who did what I saw on June the 7th, they hated Paul Murdaugh, and they had anger in their heart.
On Wall Street, the Dow lost 337 points. The NASDAQ closed down nearly 200. CBS's Jason Brooks on why.
Stocks sold off after the Federal Reserve's favorite inflation gauge, the government's personal consumption expenditure index, rose more than expected in January, following similar readings in the consumer and producer price indexes. That's fueling the likelihood of more rate hikes from the Fed, and investors reacted by dumping stocks in what wound up being the worst week of 2023 for the market.
They've been held at Guantanamo Bay Naval Base for some 2 decades. Now they're going home.
They are brothers, ages 53 and 55, and they have been held as detainees in the war against terrorism for helping to operate safe houses for suspected al-Qaeda operatives. The Pentagon says the two were never charged with any crimes during their 20 years in U.S. custody. They were captured by Pakistan's security services in Karachi in 2002, were held in a CIA-run detention site in Afghanistan, and then transferred to Guantanamo Bay in 2004. Their return to Pakistan leaves just 32 detainees at Gitmo, which once held hundreds of prisoners. Linda Kenyon, CBS News.
This is CBS News.
Find tools for the job site or your own backyard at over 10,000 authorized local steel dealers. Find yours at steelusa.com, STIHLUSA.com.
This week, Staples has deals so good, you're going to want to sit down. Are you sitting? I'll wait. Great. Right now during Staples Sit-a-thon, select chairs are up to 50% off, like the Union and Scale Essentials Mesh Back Task Chair, now just $89.99 at Staples. You save $90. Plus, get 2 2-ounce bottles of Purell hand sanitizer, free with the Staples Connect app. So take a seat or 2. Right now at Staples, the working, learning, and saving store. Ends 2/18. In-store only. Purell limit 2 while supplies last.
Yeah, I'm so stressed. Our business is growing. We've got people all over now.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Ooma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 50 features.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Just $24.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Find small business calm at ooma.com/radio. That's OOMA.com/radio.
It's getting to be a hobbit. in Hollywood.
This is the one, Brady.
Warner Brothers says it's brokered a deal to make multiple new movies based on the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit books. In a statement, the company says for all the scope and detail lovingly packed into the two trilogies, the vast, complex, and dazzling universe Tolkien dreamed up remains largely unexplored on film. The 6 Rings and Hobbit movies combined earned nearly $6 billion at the box office and won a total of 17 Academy Awards. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
In Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, police say they've arrested a 33-year-old man who tried to kill his mother with a hammer. The woman told them that her son attacked her while she was doing the dishes, but she didn't know why. The arrest report says he told police that he did it because his parents were being mean to God and Goddess. He's jailed and charged with attempted homicide. Peter King, CBS News.
Think you know sports better than Brady does? Text in with your thoughts at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV AM and FM, WDEVradio.com. High school basketball action on the boys' side coming up next today. It'll be about 7 o'clock, Williamstown and Spalding. It is senior night at the home of the Crimson Tide. So Brent Curtis on courtside, or standing there courtside. One of my favorite moments, this would be over-traumatizing it, but back in the day, I was in a men's league when I worked at Norwich. I was in a Central Vermont men's league. And we played like every Tuesday night. And there was a really good team full of former Norwich players, some guys that I knew, but they were like our rivals. They talked a lot of smack, got in your face, very aggressive, very physical. And we played them and beat them at Spalding High School. So one of my great Vermont athletic achievements was beating that team at Spalding High School. Good memories for me at the home of the Crimson Tide. So it was the Barry Men's League. We played it over at Spalding. It was Barry Men's League. Yeah, we played it there like every Tuesday night. So definitely was a fun time. So we are very much on the local sports train here today, I should say. It's talking a little high school stuff, talking about the situation with the NVU athletic system. Well, now I'm going to transition over to UVM because this story has been winding and it has been confusing. So for 20 years, right, maybe longer, there has been talk about getting a new gym to replace Patrick Gym, right? You've heard this conversation. So have I. I had it for the 6 years, prior that getting to WDEV. I had this conversation on my other station. So a couple of years ago, a whole multi-million-dollar athletics facilities project passed. And a new arena was supposed to be part of that. We have not seen a new arena yet. The new arena was supposed to be built already, and it hasn't even been started as far as I can tell. Alex Abrami of the Burlington Free Press wrote yesterday about some of the issues plaguing UVM when it comes to this. Money, funding, the project now costs more than it was originally supposed to. So Alex has all the answers on things that are going on. And Alex, before we get to the numbers, thank you for being with us first and foremost. Before we get to the numbers, let me just kind of ask a simple question to a complex issue. As I understand it, the athletic facilities project had 3 components. One was a new gym for men and women's basketball. 2 was a totally refurbished Gutterson Fieldhouse, which was going to fix up the situation for UVM men and women's hockey. And 3rd was a kind of multi-use center for the general student body as a whole, that the entire student body would have access to, a rec center. And before we go any further, am I right on that? Were those the 3 components to the athletic facilities project that was greenlit a couple of years ago?
Yeah, that's pretty much like the 3 big items for the project. I mean, there's, they're connecting. The plan is to connect Gutterson and the Tarrant Center to have some sort of spine where you can have some shared space. You can watch from either side. There's some, Victory Club. There's some other things, but yeah, I mean, and I think recently they increased the individual fitness space for the student body. That's another factor. But yeah, I mean, the 3 big items, of course, are the Gutterson renovations, a new home for the basketball teams, and then the recreation wellness center for the students.
So we had heard that because of the pandemic and there was the, stay home, stay safe initiative, then lumber costs went up, et cetera. So we knew the project was delayed. They have started working on this project again. Update us now. What is done? What has been done? What hasn't been started yet? Where are we at?
I don't know, I don't have an itemized list of what's been done, but you can see at where Tarrant Center is supposed to be, there's nothing there yet, but they have the infrastructure in place in terms of, they've spent over $60 million on the foundation for Tarrant Center, the infrastructure and the steel. They've opened, this past fall, they opened up the mat court and a bouldering wall for the student body. They've done renovations inside of Gutterson. If you've been there, you notice that there's some new things. A new video board. The video board came in now. That's 2.5 years ago. So it's a lot of stuff that's sort of behind the scenes. And obviously, the Tarrant Center is there's nothing there yet in terms of like a building. So because that's been put on hold at the moment as they try to fundraise more money and try to look for more ways to reach that, as I'm sure you're going to get to, but to reach that $87 million gap that they are currently facing.
Yeah, so it's an $87 million gap. That's what your story reported. Here's where I have the question. Is $87 million needed to just complete the Tarrant Center, or is $87 million needed to complete everything on this list?
That's everything on the list. I don't have a number on what it is just for Tarrant Center, but that is the entirety of the project.
Okay.
And of that 87 million, they are looking at raising, whether that's through private fundraising, whether that's through other funding sources, but they need to raise 48 million. They've, as the story noted, they identified about 39 million of available UVM resources, whether that's from debt sources or a UVM cash reserve. There's a student fee that students pay that they're counting on. If you want to look at it as they need to raise 48 million and they can complete the project, I think that's fair to say. But in totality, yes, they need to get 80. They don't have the $87 million right now as we speak. So that's the work group that was commissioned in the fall to come to figure out ways to get this project done. That's the number that they landed on.
Alex Abrami, Burlington Free Press award-winning sports writer with us here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the projects that have already been started are going to be finished first. When more money comes in, the gut's going to be finished, the student rec center is going to be finished. And then my question is, well, the thing that hadn't really been started yet, when do we actually start that? What is a reasonable timeline right now for the Tarrant Center and for the new home of men and women's basketball?
I didn't get that answer when I asked Jeff Shulman last week. I
assume you asked the question though. So, what is their response when you ask that question?
I think it was too early to say. And maybe my question was a little bit different than yours. I think I asked like how long it would take to finish.
Yeah.
And he did say it would take, he couldn't answer that question. He couldn't say the exact amount of time. I do know, I did a story 2 years ago on the arena when they delayed borrowing the $30 million in bond. And at that point, this is 2 years ago, it would take 18 months to complete the arena. I'm sure that timeline is different now. But we're years away, I think. If all goes to plan on UVM side, I think we're still years away from opening the doors.
What is the level of frustration as you understand it in the athletics community? I imagine it's got to be high. We were talking to Coach Brennan the other day, and he went on a 3 or 4 minute diatribe about how we need the arena and we need it now. I got to imagine he's not the only one who feels that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly heard things like you that it's like it is very frustrating that this isn't done. But I think you have to be cognizant of the situation. Like, who knew that COVID-19 was going to drop on us? Now it's basically 3 years ago. I mean, that certainly was a wrench in the plans that has caused a lot of issues, a lot of delays. And now here we are. We're almost 4 years since they first broke ground, and we're not really that close to completion. And then the other part of the frustration is like they still need to raise money. I mean, $87 million is not that's a lot of money.
Why is the cost so much higher than initially projected? Is it just because building materials is caused by the pandemic? Is that the only reason why this is so much more expensive?
I think that's part of it. I think the construction costs going up is a big factor. Is inflation, of course, but yeah, why was it $95 million 4 years ago and now it's going to be $154? They increased some areas of the projects in terms of like the fitness centers. In individual fitness that added to it. There was always going to be a second phase of this project. So I think that $95 million at the start wasn't a complete portrayal of what was going to happen. I think it was always going to go up. But now it's exceedingly gone up because of the delays and because of construction costs have gone up so much since COVID-19.
Well, I guess then I think after 8 minutes talking to you, here's where I'm supposed to land. I think I'm supposed to give them a pass because no one could foresee the pandemic and no one could foresee inflation and no one could foresee building costs. That's fine. But my question is then what is the urgency then now to raise the remaining $48 million that they need? If I'm supposed to give them a pass to this point, that's one thing. But where is the urgency to get the rest of the money?
I think that was why they commissioned this work group. For starters, they first looked at, can we do something different, maybe less expensive? And they landed on, and the board agreed with this, they landed on staying with the original project.
Okay.
So now between now and May, when the Board of Trustees meets again, they need to come up with a plan to raise this money. So they have a shorter period of time to make this happen. So I think, I don't want to like throw in like a sports term like a Hail Mary, because I don't think it's that, but I think there's urgency with university leaders, with Jeff Schulman, with anyone who's working on this, that they need to have a path forward in the next couple months to get this done. Because you're staring at, a second pit in Burlington at the moment. I think they want to get this resolved.
As for play on the courts, the UVM men have wrapped up the number one seed in the America East Conference tournament. The UVM women will go into the final game of their regular season tomorrow against Bryant with a chance at the number one seed. They're 13-2. Albany's also 13-2. What's the tie-breaking scenario here between UVM and Albany? Because they're 1-1 against each other. So if they both finish 14-2 or they both finish 13-3, who gets the one seed?
It's fairly simple from UVM's perspective to get the one seed. Maine has to win its last game of the year against NJIT, and against Binghamton. And if they do that, and then Vermont beats Bryant, then Vermont gets the tiebreaker over Albany. Or if obviously if Albany loses and Vermont wins, then they would be one up, and there wouldn't be a tiebreaker scenario.
All right, so
that's the easy answer to that. So basically, Vermont will go into tomorrow's game at 4:30, knowing that already, because they're the last game of the day, starting at 4:30. The other games are earlier, so they'll know before tip-off what they have to do.
All right, so we're rooting for UVM and Maine tomorrow on the women's side. And as for the UVM men, they are, again, the number one seed. What is your overall assessment of this team at this point?
I would say I'm impressed, because we all know, and I know you talked about it, like the slow start, the turnover. They had 7 newcomers. They were 2-7 at one point, 6-8 in the non-conference. They had back-to-back losses early in league play where they didn't look very good, but they're also, one of those games they were missing Finn Sullivan and TJ Hurley. And they've kind of evolved on offense, and I'm sure you've talked about it on your show, how Finn is playing off the ball. Mm-hmm. Dylan is running the point along with Robin Duncan, and that's changed things. They've started to develop a good rapport. They started to score more, and I know recently, the last couple of games, their defense hasn't been super on point because they've allowed a good amount of points. They usually play better this time of year defensively, and they've been, from January to now, been the best team in the league by far.
Alex, very open-ended question to get you out of here. Girls basketball on the high school side, playdowns have already started. The boys bracket will come out on Monday. Kind of the thing to watch, or the thing you are watching across the board in high school coverage here the rest of the winter.
Well, it's interesting because you go to any sport and you could pick your favorites. But I think one of the more interesting tournaments would be boys hockey. You really don't have any idea who's going to win, I think. Rice is the top seed. Essex is the defending champ. But a team like Colchester or a team like South Burlington can win the title. So I think that might be the most interesting tournament at any of the sports is Division I boys hockey.
Alex Abrami, Burlington Free Press, wrote the great article yesterday that came out on the state of the UVM Athletics Facilities Project and cleared up some information here for us today. Alex, man, we appreciate it. Have a very good but busy weekend.
All right. Thanks, Brady.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on as well, clearing up a lot of information there on the UVM Arena project. Here's where we're at. The rec center for the student body, that is being worked on, right? The gut is being worked on. The arena has basically not started, and that's a huge problem. And there's $48 million left that the university has to raise in order to complete the rest of these projects, including the arena. My thing is now this: there needs to be a public sense of urgency here. We have waited too long. This program, this basketball program on the men's side, is too good to be playing in a glorified high school gym. And as fun as it is, as old-timey as it is, as nostalgic as it is, the team deserves better. We talk about wanting the program to move forward. Well, part of the way you can move forward is impressing recruits with your facilities. The fans deserve better. Right? Let's call a spade a spade. A lot of older people go to Patrick Gym and watch UVM. 65-year-old people don't need to be walking up those bleachers. Do it for your fans. Get it done for your men's team. And, your women's team is now also really good. Let's help them have some momentum, too, so they can stay really good and they can be what the men have been. I don't want this to be a flash in the pan for the women's team. I want them to stay really good. I want them to get impressive recruits. Their recruits deserve to be impressed by a top-notch facility as well. It has been too long. Get it done. Get it done with some urgency. Now, the pandemic, nobody could predict. Inflation, nobody could predict. Lumber prices, labor prices, nobody could predict. So I can give you some sympathy on that. But my sympathy ends if there's not a public push to get this done. The program deserves it on the men's side. The program deserves it on the women's side. And the fans deserve it across the board. $48 million is a lot of money. I am not the guy to ask about how to raise it, but somebody's got to be out front publicly pushing this. And I hate that there's been no communication really on this publicly for a while. Alex's story was the first time I'd heard anything about the arena in a bit. I talk to Coach Brennan every week, and every week we chat off air. And neither one of us have any idea what's going on. If Tom Brennan can't figure out what's going on with the new arena, then nobody can. Publicly, people haven't been talking about this. It's just been a big guessing game as to what's going on. Now we know the money is such a big issue. Let's work publicly to get that money in our pockets or in the university's pockets so this thing can be done. And let's get them done for everybody, right? I'm talking about the arena. Let's finish the gut out the right way, too. The women's hockey team has been nationally ranked all year. You want them to stay really good, don't you? You want them to make NCAA tournaments. You want them to compete for national championships. They are this close. Don't you think a different barn with a better weight room, with a better locker room. Don't you think that would help? The men's hockey team were trying to get turned around, and Todd Woodcroft's doing a great job inch by inch. But he needs that facility as well. He's already getting NHL draft picks and recruits. Couldn't he do better with even better facilities? These programs have played under nostalgic, yes, but lacking facilities for too long. And the fans have dealt with it for too long. The time is now. $48 million is a lot, but somebody's got to be out there banging the drum publicly. Peter says, just got to the show. 1,000,000% agree. Catamount Hoops does deserve better facilities, and they needed it yesterday. Build it and they will come, and so will higher level and more elite athletes in every sport. And it only makes Burlington and the surrounding area that much better off the avid revenue and commerce it's going to provide local businesses. It's going to pay for itself over time. You know, that's the other thing, too. This new facility can be used for more than just basketball. This new facility can help the community and can bring in extra revenue, right? You bring in a new basketball facility, that's awesome. Well, now you can rent it out to AAU tournaments in the summer. You can make money that way as a university. I live by Essex High School. I see AAU tournaments at Essex High School all summer. Why are there not AAU tournaments being played at Patrick Gym? This new facility, they should do it. There's money. You should be bringing concerts to this new facility. If this new facility seats 4,000 people in comfortable seating, there should be concerts there with real legitimate artists, and you can make money that way. When I worked at Hudson Valley Community College, our gym was nice. Flower shows, car shows, whatever. All those things can be hosted there. Schools can rent it out for graduation because it's nicer. You can make money back off this thing into the community. Let's get it done. It should become Fish's new home arena, someone says. Somebody should play there. Absolutely. But the urgency needs to happen. I can give you sympathy because you couldn't predict the pandemic. I can give you sympathy because you couldn't predict labor costs. But I can't give you sympathy if you're not out there banging the drum, figuring out how to get this done. Everything's been happening under hushed tones and in secret meetings. Let's get it out there, and let's get the push, and let's do it now, because hockey deserves it. Basketball deserves it. The fans deserve it. The community deserves it. You who doesn't get to see a great band come to town because there's nowhere to play, you deserve to have a place that seats 4,000 or 5,000 that people will come and play at. This should happen. It's the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. High school basketball comes up about 7 o'clock. Red Sox baseball was back today. The Sox took on Northeastern and won that game 5-3. I've got a couple of spring training takeaways. I'll tell you about them next here on DEV.
Hi, this is Mike Goslin with a few reasons you should buy your next vehicle at Cody Chevrolet Cadillac. Selection, we have the best selection of new and certified pre-owned Chevrolets and Cadillacs with the lowest prices in Central Vermont. Experience, our friendly, qualified employees are focused on exceeding your expectations. Service, our award-winning state-of-the-art service department with a convenient drive-through service lane. Location, we are conveniently located near routes 2, 302, and I-89 on the Barry Montpelier Road, or online at CodyChevrolet.com. Cody is why, Chevy's the buy. Chevrolet, find new roads.
Black Cat Coffee and Bakery of Vermont is now open in the historic Waterbury train station. Black Cap is a new gathering place in Waterbury, open daily, offering house-made pastries and sandwiches for breakfast and lunch. Stop by on your way to or from the mountain, or for a central meeting location. Black Cap Coffee and Bakery, a great place to eat, meet, and work. Now in the Waterbury train station, as well as Burlington, Stowe, and Morrisville. BlackCapVermont.com.
Tracy Schamberger describes her experience advertising with WDEV.
When WDEV presented Age Well with an opportunity to co-present a weekly live interview, we jumped at the opportunity. We see a direct increase in calls to our helpline because of our spot on WDEV, which is exactly what we had hoped for. We have experienced incredible results.
Interested in advertising on WDEV? Contact us at WDEV@radiovermont.com.
In 6 decades, a lot has been said about Gillespie Fuels and Propane. Here's just a sampling.
The staff that they have working for them are tremendous. They're friendly. They do the job. They're always cleaning up after themselves. Very efficient, always on time.
You can call the office and someone answers. We're not put on hold or have to wait.
I've always found them to be right on time and exceptional people to do business with.
It's more of a family business. All the guys know you, and just always there for you. That makes a big difference to me.
Gillespie gave me a fair price right off the bat. They were fun and easy to deal with, and I've been thrilled to give them my business and keep the business local.
They're good people down there.
With offices in Northfield, Randolph, and Waitsfield, delivery and service requests are handled 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right here in Vermont by people who know the temperature and where you live. Gillespie Fuels and Propane, 60 years of Vermonters serving Vermonters. 485-3766.
Hello, I'm Jose Hernandez, and I have been using a wheelchair since my accident in 1995.
My name is Andrea Dalzell, and I've been using a wheelchair since I was 5 years old.
I guess if I had one message for the general public, it would be that I appreciate your help. But please, ask first.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that I've actually got everything under control.
I think people get nervous. They don't know how to act, so they pretend I'm not there.
What probably bothers me the most is when waiters talk to my companion and not directly to me.
I think everyone with a disability can relate to that parking spot problem.
We know you're just parking in that disabled spot for a second, but please, don't. We're just looking for the same respect and consideration as everyone else.
United Spinal Association is dedicated to enhancing the quality of life of people living with spinal cord injuries and disorders. Download our disability etiquette booklet at unitedspinal.org.
Hi, this is Anson Tebbets, co-host of For the Birds, heard Saturdays on WDEV. Each week, Chip Darmstadt and I discuss bird sightings, bird counts, and activity at your feeder. You also can listen anytime to podcasts on Apple, Google, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Join us Saturdays at 7:30 and 12:15 for the Birds. 28 years on WDEV AM and FM and streaming at WDEVradio.com.
Your chance to be part of the show is on the text line at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show here on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. The Red Sox beat Northeastern today in the first spring training game of the year. Our friend Tom Caron was on the call on Nesson, and Lou Merloni was there with him. It was a lot of fun to see the Red Sox back at it. Really, the Red Sox, all their scoring, I believe, came in the first inning. So I do have some things that I noticed in the game, but I actually want to talk about a spring training takeaway that came outside of the Red Sox game. This is important. I watched a good amount today of the Mariners and Padres, right? You know, I'm a Mariners fan, so first Mariners spring training game of the year. I watched a good amount of the Mariners-Padres game, and it was fascinating to watch the game be played with the new rules. Now, the Red Sox game was not really played with the new rules because they were playing Northeastern, and Northeastern is a college team. They have different rules. It wasn't enforced in the way it's going to be enforced when full grapefruit league action begins for the Sox, I believe, on Sunday. So watching the Red Sox game, you didn't get a feel for it. Watching the Mariners game against the Padres, it was a drastic change. It was a drastic change. Now, I will tell you, the pitch clock achieved its goal. Mariners-Padres, spring training game, final score was 3-2. The game took 2 hours and 29 minutes. And spring training games, you know as well as I do, can absolutely drag on forever. Why? Bunch of minor leaguers play, bunch of guys that won't make the team. Sometimes guys have a hard time throwing strikes, bunch of pitchers. So minor league games can drag on. This one flew by. 2 hours, 29 minutes. It was drastic how much quicker the game was. A lot of you are going to love that. I enjoyed it as well, especially for a spring game. There's a clip going around on social media, 4 pitches in the first 50 seconds of the game. 4 pitches thrown in 50 seconds. That also is drastic. The thing you are going to have to get used to, and for a lot of you, you won't watch baseball until opening day. You are going to be drawn immediately to the clock. The pitch clock is not subtle. The pitch clock is not just kept in the umpire's head. It's not just kept by somebody near the dugout. The pitch clock is almost right. It's like right by the on-deck circle, and it is huge. Your eyes are drawn to the pitch clock. I found myself watching the pitch clock as almost as much as I was watching the game itself. I'm looking at the pitch clock. I'm thinking, okay, is the batter in the box yet? Is the pitcher on the rubber? Oh, he's getting down to 3, 2, 1. He's got to throw it. I found myself doing that. It is not subtle. I am going to have to watch more games this spring to try to train myself by opening day to not be looking at the clock. If you just watch baseball for the first time on Red Sox opening day, March 31st, I think it is, you are going to be like, whoa. I mean, this is not like the shot clock, right? The shot clock is visible to the players in the game. And then for us, it's a little graphic on the scoreboard. That's what I was thinking this was going to be. That is not the case. The pitch clock is nearly front and center in your television screen. And it is massive, right? It's not right behind home plate, but it's very close to behind home plate. So it totally changed the way the game was played, but it also totally changed the way that I watched the game. And I kept thinking to myself about beat the clock versus just the game that I was watching. Again, the Red Sox didn't really have that today, but with our Grapefruit League play this weekend, they will have it, and you will notice it as well. Now, the one thing I would be curious about is, are all the stadiums going to be outfitted the same way? Like, maybe at JetBlue Park, the clock is not as prominent as it was in Peoria for the Mariners and Padres. I would doubt it. I think it's probably going to be uniform, but I will be curious to watch a game on Nesson and see exactly what it's like in that ballpark. But the pitch clock, it did its job. The game moved quicker. The game had a lot of pace, but it is glaring to you when you watch it. And I saw people on social media saying, hey, I like this, but it gives me a little bit of anxiety because I'm watching and kind of counting down with it. And I felt the same way. I mean, you feel like you're watching. Look, we will get used to this, right? We get used to the shot clock. We get used to the play clock in football. The goal is that this kind of gets to be like the play clock, right? The play clock in football, and I know it's there. It's 40 seconds, but I don't tend to look at it until I think like, okay, we're starting to get down here. I'd like that to be the same for baseball. I found myself looking at it right from the beginning of the sequence. Okay, when does the clock start? Does it start when he gets the ball back from the umpire? Does it start when he gets the ball from the catcher? Does it start as immediately as the catcher catches the last ball? Okay, now we're at 10 seconds. Is the batter in the box? This guy stepped out. He's fiddling with his glove. Is he going to get back in time? I found myself asking those questions. As for its impact on the game, quality of play-wise, I do think it's going to be an adjustment for players. Okay, players are creatures of habit, and one of the big parts of baseball is the mental game. Right? Pitcher steps off the rubber, gets the ball back, takes a deep breath, rubs the sweat away from his eyes, deep breath again, steps on the rubber. Pitchers can't do that now. You don't have enough time to do that. And for people who are struggling, that sequence, that routine is often a way to kind of get them back to center. Batter swings and misses at a pitch, steps out, deep breath, looks at the bat, fiddles with the gloves, wipes the sweat away, deep breath again, back in the box. Can't do that anymore. So I do think you will see people who are struggling kind of snowball because they don't have that routine to go back to. Brian Kane, who is one of the top sports psychologists in the country and who is a UVM grad, I met him a bunch of years ago, and I've stayed in touch with him. He's come on the show before. He teaches a whole method of kind of getting yourself centered. And getting yourself centered involves stepping out, taking a breath, having a routine. That stuff takes time. And now players that have been brought up doing that kind of stuff, they don't have that ability. So I watched Robbie Ray, a pitcher for the Mariners, a guy who's won a Cy Young, throw 2 balls in a row. And then at a time when he should have stepped off the rubber and gathered himself, he just got right back to it and threw 2 pitches that were not even close to the zone. It seemed like that at bat snowballed on him. I saw a couple of batters today swing at a bad pitch, swing and miss. And then rather than being able to step out and reset, they're right back in the box. And it almost seems like they don't have a plan. They're just kind of up there playing whack-a-mole. And they swung and missed 2 more times. Now, again, this is day 1. And I also admit freely that there were a lot of good players playing in this game. Like Nick Martinez started for the Padres. He's a good major league pitcher. Then they went to a couple of other major league arms. The Mariners started Robbie Ray. Good pitching was out there. So maybe hitters would have struggled anyways. But I felt like I noticed hitters struggling. And that was something that I think you need to watch for in spring, but early in the season. But the pitch clock did accomplish its goal of getting the game quicker. It was also nice to see people standing in positions that I expect them to be standing in. Whether I watched the Red Sox game or I watched the Mariners game, there was some shifting. There were shortstops playing near second base, but there wasn't anything of, okay, we're playing in shallow right field. We're swinging over and playing 2 outfielders and 5. There wasn't any of that. So baseball looked positionally like it looked for me for the first 20 years of my life, 25 years of my life. And that was good. And that was fun to see. Balls that should have been hits were largely hits, and I enjoyed that. I saw 1 stolen base with the bigger bag. Didn't see anything else beyond that, but it was good to have baseball back today. It did go quick, and I think it is going to be an adjustment for the players in terms of their routine, and it's going to be adjustment for us with our eyes. Because, again, I found myself looking at that pitch clock as much as I was studying what's happening on the field. I mean, it is quick. Guys, they got the ball. Now, I only saw, to each of these teams' credit in the Mariners and Padres game, I only saw 1 violation all game long. Now, I didn't pay as close attention at the back end of the game because I was getting ready for the show, but I watched the first 6 innings fairly carefully, and I only saw 1 violation. In the first inning, Manny Machado stepped into the box, was in the box, but at 8 seconds was not looking at the pitcher, was not paying attention. And he got called for an automatic strike. He basically started that at bat 0-1. That was the only thing that I saw violation-wise all game. And if that is all we get here, then this will have been a success. I know it's going to be a cluster. I saw a college game end on a strike 3 on a ball that wasn't thrown because somebody wasn't in the box. There is going to be some craziness, especially in spring training. And especially in the World Baseball Classic, where guys don't have to play with these rules. Guys are going to come back to camp and not have practiced this for 2-3 weeks. So April is going to be a mess in some ways. But we didn't see that mess today at a time when I kind of expected it to. Text says 802-585-3026. Baseball on the radio is going to be a much smoother transition than TV with the pitch clock. That's true. So for those of you watching or listening to games on WDEV, you're going to have it much easier. The game is going to be on radio is going to be really easy. And that is a great point. And that's a great selling point for us. I hadn't really thought about that. Maybe I will go through this weekend and listen to a Red Sox game and see how crisp that is. Here's another thing that I know, that the days of me having significantly shortened shows, those days are done because the games are going to be quicker. Like in the past, game would start at 2. There's a good chance I'm not getting on the air until 6. Now I think I'm going to be on at 5:30. That's good. But games that start at 3, I might have to stick around here and talk for a little while, not expecting to. So it's going to alter my schedule as well. Reminder, high school basketball is coming up here in the next probably 15 minutes or so. That is Williamstown and Spalding. Couple things real quick on the Red Sox specifically. Here was the Red Sox lineup. Jarren Duran led off. He played center field. Rafael Devers hit second and played third. Kike Hernandez played shortstop. He hit third. Masataka Yoshida played left field and hit fourth. Verdugo hit fifth and played right. Jose Alfaro was the catcher. He hit sixth. I'm sorry, he was the DH. He hit sixth. And Tristan Casas was at first. He hit seventh. 8 and 9 were a couple of minor league players. It's a very interesting lineup for the Red Sox. Most people think you can't read anything in to a minor league lineup. I think you can. Now, a minor league lineup on day one doesn't tell the whole story. I know what happens on February 24th may not happen on March 31st, but I do think you can gather some things that are interesting from a spring lineup. Now, for what it's worth, former Red Sox infielder Will Middlebrooks, he actually messaged me on Twitter today and said that I don't think the lineup means anything, but I disagree. There are some things that are interesting. Like, first off, we know the Red Sox have said they want to separate Devers and Yoshida in the order. They don't want both lefties back to back. So this lineup accompanies that, right? Second is Devers, fourth is Yoshida. They are separated. But it accomplishes this in a different way than we expected. I had been led to believe that Yoshida was going to be the leadoff hitter, and I assumed that Devers was just going to hit third. Well, today, Devers hits second and Yoshida hits fourth. I think he can take something from that. Devers likes to hit second. They like him hitting second. If they don't want to bend on that, then maybe Yoshida does hit fourth. Alex Cora said, I'm not guaranteeing Yoshida's a leadoff hitter. We've heard about his power. Tom Caron says his legs are huge. There's more power in there. On the broadcast today, Lou Merloni was saying, this guy hits the ball a lot farther than I was expecting. Maybe Yoshida is a 4-hitter for this team without Trevor Story. We just assumed he'd be the leadoff hitter, but if they want them separated, Devers hits second like he likes, Yoshida hits fourth. I think that's fair to wonder if that's what their plan's going to be. Will Middlebrooks tells me it means nothing. I'm not buying that. I think it means something. At least they're getting a look at the idea of Yoshida hitting fourth. I also think it's interesting that, by the way, Yoshida went 0 for 1, but he had a sac fly. I like that, doing the little things that the Japanese players tend to do very well. I like that. Then I wonder if Devers is going to hit second and Yoshida is going to hit fourth, who is the leadoff hitter on this team? It's not going to be Jarren Duran, who was there today. Does Kike Hernandez hit leadoff, which he did in 2021? Because I could very easily see a lineup that goes Kike at short leading off, Devers at third, Justin Turner, who didn't play today, being the DH, and then Yoshida. I could see that first four. If Devers is going to hit second, who's going to hit leadoff? It very well could be Kike Hernandez. He hit third today, but he could lead off, and Turner could hit third. Casas hitting seventh, I think, is very reasonable, especially for a young player. Take the pressure off of him. Verdugo hitting fifth, I think, is reasonable. Alfaro was the DH. He was in that sixth spot, but I think Adam Duvall would probably be in the sixth spot in a regular season game. It kind of seemed like Alex Cora was putting some guys where he wanted to and using other guys as placeholders. Someone told me, Brady means nothing. He just wanted to get the World Baseball Classic guys at the top of the order. Well, yeah, but Yoshida's playing in the World Baseball Classic too. If they were just, the first 5 guys in the order are all playing in the World Baseball Classic for the Red Sox. They could have put Yoshida at the leadoff spot if that's where their plan was for him. They could have put Duran in the 4th spot. They could have done any of that. But they put Yoshida 4th. I do think there's a reason for that. I do think there's a reason for that, and I do think that you can extrapolate something from it. Now, again, Will says no, but I don't know about that. I think you can. It's the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. It was good to have Red Sox baseball back in my life today. I felt bad for the Northeastern pitcher. I can only imagine what it's like to be the Northeastern pitcher in that situation. Like, Northeastern's here. By the way, Northeastern had to travel yesterday. Their flight got canceled. They got into Tampa. They didn't get to their hotel room until 4 a.m. They had to play at 1. So they were up against it from the start. You're playing major leaguers. You're amped up. It's a bunch of Massachusetts and Connecticut kids playing against the Red Sox. I'd be amped up too. Pitcher comes out. He gives up an immediate double to Duran. He almost hits Devers twice. Then, walks the ballpark. I think he walked like 3 or 4 guys in that inning. Gave up 5 runs. That's a tough spot to be in. I wouldn't want that assignment. You're pitching against your favorite team is the Red Sox, and you're going to pitch against Rafael Devers with a $300 million contract to face in the franchise. You're almost going to hit him twice. I would be nervous about that as well. So I did not envy that kid out there. There was some junior who had Tommy John surgery in the past, some big lefty, and I didn't like that. I wouldn't have been good in that situation either. All right. A couple of minutes left here on DEV. But speaking of, I was talking about the Mariners game. I forgot to bury the lead here. I saw to see Xander Bogaerts in a Padres uniform. That was jarring. Bogaerts struck out, flew out to center deep. I don't know if he got a third at bat. I wasn't watching at that point, but he flew out to center deep and he struck out on like 3 or 4 pitches. So a good sequence by the Mariners, but whatever. But just to see Xander Bogaerts in that uniform, cringy. He was asked about being the Red Sox top priority this offseason, and he said, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to show it. So the barbs are going to keep coming at Chaim Bloom and company. Did you see this? Chaim Bloom said that he's gotten death threats over how he's handled the Red Sox. That doesn't surprise me. If you do that, you're a clown. Like, I'm all for loving your team. If you're giving death threats to the executives, the players, the coaches, you are a moron and you don't deserve to watch the sport. If you want to send them a message, then don't go to the games. Don't buy the cable package. Don't rock the jersey. Stand out there with a sign. Don't send death threats. If you do that, you are an imbecile. And you do not deserve to watch the Boston Red Sox or any sport. You don't even remember. You're not a functioning member of society at that point if you act that way. Celtics won last night. Good win against the Pacers. How about Miles Turner? 8 of 10 from 3 for Indiana. 40 points. Good to see Tatum come back off the wrist scare, get the nice win. Jaylen Brown with the mask. He played well. Marcus Smart was excellent in overtime. Good stuff all around there. Aaron Nesmith, a couple of big buckets for Indiana. Good first game back all the way. Celtics not playing tonight. Bruins not playing tonight. But the Bees will be back in action tomorrow. As for the Celtics, their weekend schedule looks like this. They will take on the Sixers tomorrow night at 8:30. The Sixers are a team that a lot of people are high on. Nick Wright the other day said he thinks the Sixers are the best team in the NBA, and he thinks they're going to beat the Celtics in the Eastern Conference. He thinks they're better than Milwaukee as well. So we will see what happens. Thanks to Alex Abrami of the Burlington Free Press for joining the show, giving us the latest on the UVM Arena. Remember, here's what you're rooting for this weekend. The UVM women's basketball team needs a win and a main win, likely, in order to get the number 1 seed in the conference and have the conference tournament run through Patrick Gym. So UAlbany and UVM are both 13-2 in the conference. If they finish with the same record, 14-2 or 13-3, UVM is rooting for a main win. if UVM and UAlbany finish tied, a Maine win would give UVM the tiebreaker. Now, obviously, UVM can be 14-2 and Albany can be 13-3, and it doesn't matter. But you're rooting for Maine, and I'm rooting for the Catamounts. Go download the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and WDEVradio.com. The full interview with Alex Abrami is there, as are all of our interviews this week, including Tom Brennan, former Catamount Hoops coach, Buster Olney of ESPN, and Tom Caron. We will be back at it on Monday. I believe we're going to have high school basketball again on Monday night. And that might be the first day of the boys tournament. I don't think so, though. I think it would be a girls game. I'd have to verify that, but I'll know over the course of the weekend. So have a great weekend, everybody. This has been the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, WDEVradio.com, and always streaming on the free WDEV radio app. Go watch the Red Sox this weekend and tell me if you can focus on anything but the pitch clock. Brent Curtis standing courtside in just a couple of moments. Williamstown and Spalding, the final day of the regular season in boys basketball.
Are you looking to get rid of your used mobile home? Here at Fecto